Guten Abend.
Good evening. I'd like to start to thank Madame Marie Koenen and the High Council of Sustainable Development for the invitations. I'm going to show you the major elements of the new EU strategy from farm to fork. As the conference is being held in English and German, I'm going to speak German, and the slides have been prepared in English. On the next slide, you'll see the general institutional context of the farm to fork strategy of the European Commission. In December 2019, the Commission presented a European framework program named European Green Deal, and all political areas had been covered. The objective is to transform the EU into a fair, prosperous society based on a resource-efficient and competitive economy with the aim of having no net emissions of greenhouse gas emissions in 2050 while decoupling economic growth from resource use. It's a very broad objective, which includes also economic growth, but with the fact that resource use should not be proportional to economic growth anymore. And we have the farm to fork strategy, which aims at transforming the EU food system. Next point. General objectives of the farm to fork strategy. It aims at reducing the middle term, at developing in the medium term EU food system, which reduces the environmental and climate footprint of the EU while producing food. Second, ensure food security and give affordable and nutritious food. And third, enhance the resilience of the system, of the EU food system, especially during times of crisis. We are talking about a global change of the food system on having a good sustainability from farm to fork, a very ambitious project, as I said. It's something which could be taken as the achievement of the century. Let's come to the objectives for 2030. There are 4 objectives plus 1, which has been included from the biodiversity strategy. First of all, a reduction by 50% of chemical pesticides. Secondly, a reduction by 50% of nutrient loss in the soil, mainly nitrogen and phosphorus, and maintaining soil fertility. Then reducing antibiotics for farmed animals and aquaculture by 50%, and then increased proportion of organic farming by 25%, and also enhance agricultural aquaculture. And then from the biodiversity strategy, we have the objective of using 10% of agricultural land for high diversity landscape features. These are aspirational targets, which means we are trying to reach them, but they are not legally binding. And you see these objectives also outside the farm to fork strategy. Those 25% of ecological land use for farming. This is a strategy of the European Commission, which does not mean that it is an EU strategy, because the two lawmaking bodies of the EU have to adopt them. Until now, only the Council has given his statement and has given another focus, especially on foreign trade, and the treatment of non-sustainable imported goods has also been emphasized. Also, guaranteeing the food supply is an important aspect for the Council, and it is very important to do impact assessment. And it is very, in a legislative proposal, all the diversity has to be taken into account. We have not yet an opinion by the European Parliament, so we do not know whether these quantitative objectives will be voted by the two legislative bodies of the EU. We're talking now about implementation of the strategy. There are 26 proposals by the Commission with 5 large themes and a horizontal approach. There's a link to the Common Agricultural Policy, and there are recommendations by the Commissions on national strategic plans in the framework of the Common Agricultural Policy. These recommendations of the Commission have been published in December 2020, and the priorities defined in those recommendations should be taken up into national planning. We have 5 themes. First of all, food security, sustainable production, sustainable processing of food, sustainable consumption, and food waste. And then there's the horizontal approach with regard to the definition of a sustainable production. You see here how many measures there are for each theme. With regard to food security, there's one measure foreseen by the Commission, a contingency plan for food supply and food security, for minimum food supply for the EU population in times of crisis. This has not much to do with sustainable production, but it is a topic which is important now during the COVID crisis. Then we have the sustainable productions. We have 9 measures which are being proposed by the Commission, legislative and non-legislative measures. And you also see when they should be implemented. But I'd like to take up a few of those. Revision of the Pesticides Directive with a reduction of 50%. And then another effect of the Farm to Fork strategy is the initiative with regard to animal welfare, with regard to animal transport. The last EU negotiations for animal welfare took place in 2009. And then we want to have innovative food additives for animal feed. And then we have the EU initiative for climate efficient agriculture, EU carbon farming, which is taken from the Climate Pact. We want farming methods which bind CO2 from the atmosphere. Then the next topics, food processing. We have a non-legislative action for the revision of EU corporate governance framework for sustainability, which means that sustainability has to be part of a strategy, of marketing strategy. And they also want responsible business and marketing practices. There are also some legislative proposals with regard to the setting up of nutrients, and also for food contact materials. We want to avoid plastics and non-sustainable materials. And then with regard to sustainable consumption, the different measures are focusing on nutrition labeling. There are regulations for origin labeling, and also for school and public institutions should be revised in order to promote sustainable products. We have two new systems for labeling, the nutrient labeling and labeling for sustainability. And then we are thinking about an EU regulation for animal welfare labeling. So we'll have one day an overdose of labeling, and it will be difficult for consumers to see what's what. Too much transparency makes things sometimes even harder. Then let's talk about the waste of food. We want to reduce the waste of food. You have here, we have the two indications on nutritional labeling in order to make sure that people understand this labeling, because otherwise food is being put into the bin when it's not necessary. And then we want legal objectives in order to reduce food waste in the EU. Now let's talk about the horizontal initiative for the revision of a sustainable food system. We want to have coherent measures on the EU level and the national level. And we want to increase sustainability levels step by step. This framework has a general basis and common definitions for sustainable food systems. Moreover, the responsibilities of all stakeholders will be redefined. More information is not available right now, and the Commission announced that this will be presented in 2023. So, this was a brief overview of the Farm to Fork strategy. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm at your disposal. And I'm happy to discuss this topic with you. Thank you very much.